we are at the stage of Trump grieving his court losses by attacking the judges that he appointed and saying because all of these Trump appointed judges are ruling against him consistently for his unlawful behavior, that it's not him to blame. It's not his unlawful actions to blame, but it's actually the Federalist Society and their chairman, Leonard Leo, who is basically responsible for bringing in all of these right-wing federal judges and Supreme Court justices who have enabled Donald Trump to basically do all of the things that he's doing. You know, it's interesting, Harry, because when you study authoritarian movements, one of the first things you learn is that they actually go after the people closest to them who they find not sufficiently loyal first within their own party. And then they actually branch out from there. I mean, if you think about that infamous scene of Saddam Hussein, when he really kind of first got into power, he called all the members of the Ba'ath Party into the room, and he would just pick one by one the members who he thought weren't sufficiently loyal. He'd bring them out back, and he would actually kill them and send a message to the party that you have to be absolutely loyal. So it doesn't shock me that Trump is attacking, you know, think about it. Who do you attack first? The people he called rhinos within his party and pushed out all the Republican Congress members and all the Republican senators to basically make the House and Senate just like total MAGA lunatics like him who aren't going to stand up to him. And now he's looking back on the judges he appointed in his first term, who are by and large experienced, competent judges who are ideologically different from me. But you go and you look at their records, most of them. I mean, I'm not talking about like, there's some bad ones like Judge Eileen Cannon, who's terrible. But a lot of these judges like, yeah, I really think you're very wrong and horribly wrong. But you can't look at their resume and what they've done and be like, you don't belong to be there. You know, you have the qualifications. Still, there's a lot of unqualified people. But now, you know, I think with the order against Donald Trump, from the United States International Federal Trade Court, where you had a Biden judge, but then a Reagan and a Trump appointed judge who all agreed Trump's tariffs were unlawful. And then you go look at what's going on in the Washington, D.C. court, where Trump judges often rule against him. In South Texas, we've seen judges rule against him on immigration issues. Across the country, we've seen Trump judges say, you know, you pushed it too far there. We can't side with you on these issues. So, you know, he's throwing his own judges under the bus. I mean, here's the post that he made. It's so long, I'm not going to read the whole thing. But he's like, the U.S. Court of International Trade incredibly ruled against the United States. Wah, 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 wah. And he goes, is it purely a hatred for Trump? Then he realizes it's a Trump-appointed judge. And he goes, I was new to Washington, and it was suggested that I use the Federalist Society as a recommending source on judges. I did so openly and freely, but then realized that they were under the thumb of a real sleazebag named Leonard Leo, a bad person who in his own way probably hates America. You know, those are really harsh words there for someone, you know, calling Leonard Leo a sleazebag who hates America because the judges that the Federalist Society has recommended, who put forward your agenda 99.999% of the time, are ruling against you on just the most crazy dictatorship things. So then you had Stephen Miller. He went on CNN on Friday, and it was a good question by the reporter who said, okay, you're saying crazy communist judges, but these are Trump judges. The Trump judges are ruling against you. Here, watch this.
That's democracy. So if there's 15 communist crazy judges on the court, that each of them as a team working together can block and freeze each and every executive action. Joe Biden was allowed by that same court system.
Some of them are Trump judges,
20 million
though.
illegal foreigners.
Why did Trump put these crazy communist judges, as you call them, on the bench?
You heard President Trump himself say that the Federalist Society and Leonard Leo has created a broken system for judicial vetting. And God knows this time around, we are not going to be using. So does that mean he doesn't support picking Amy Coney Barrett for the Supreme Court? What it means is simply this and nothing more. We're not going to be using the Federalist Society to make judicial nominations at all going forward. But let me tell you about these rogue judges. This is the most litigated issue over the last 10 years. Over the last 10 years, whether or not to deport the foreigners who invaded our country illegally. That is the most litigated issue.
And Harry, it's why you can't have intelligent conversations with these sociopaths, because they go right there and they're going to look. The Trump judges are crazy communist judges because the Federalist Society is a crazy communist organization. That's where they're at, Harry.
I'm reminded of the James Bond scene where as the villain turns, "This is the price of failure, Mr. Bond," and then he shoots his own guy in the head. It really, for a guy, it's really ironic. He values loyalty so highly, and he is never, ever loyal to anyone consistently. He always turns on them and puts the knife in the back. Look, everybody within the legal profession and academy understand that since 1980, you've had a concerted and really successful effort by conservatives, many of them associated with the Federalist Society, none more than Leonard Leo, put conservative after conservative after conservative on the court, revolutionized the courts in a way that the Democrats have not been nearly as methodical about being. But that narrative is not in question. So he loses again and again, even to these really carefully curated conservative folks. Is there any other hypothesis out there, perhaps, for what's going on? And, the one screaming in the face is, "Oh, you're violating the law left and right." And that's literally, he's got such a crass view of the law. These judges must be bad, must be terrible. Leonard Leo must be, surprise, surprise, a communist. And why? Because they rule against maximum leader Donald Trump. And that is like ipse dixit, as the lawyers would say, the definition of a bad activist judge. So, I mean, first of all, it's, as you put it, it's the exact way authoritarian governments go. What's the legal or the final operative principle? Maximum leader wins. Big brother is always right. But just that he literally has no notion or conception of the law. It can't even occur to him that we've overstepped. He didn't know certain things. He's not a lawyer. He oversteps. The courts have corrected him. If there are any rulings against him, it's communists. Leonard Leo is despicable. They all have, we can't use them anymore. And that really just reflects, what is the law supposed to be? How do you know if judges are good? One reason, and one bellwether: they rule with Trump. That's the only, it's such a, not just simplistic, but vulgar view of the law. I can't, even conceive of anything else. And as I say, when I started, nobody, conservative or liberal, would adopt that narrative. They would say that conservative administrations took great care to put conservative judges on there. So if they're ruling against Donald Trump, there's maybe other reason, like, for example, he's flagrantly violating the Constitution. No two ways about it. And anyone who's taken the oath and has a modicum of pride or integrity says so.
Where do we go from here, Harry? Where do we go from here? So is it Trump just going to appoint the least qualified people right now? Should we expect Alina Habba and non-lawyers? And I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, do you have to be a lawyer to even be a judge? I mean, there were Supreme Court justices, 100 years ago who actually were not lawyers. Is he going to try to appoint? I mean, I'm not being facetious here. People in his family. Are they going to try to push through people like that to be Supreme Court justices? It's not far fetched.
Look, we are at day 130. We have 1,300 days to go. I think at the end of the day, I think you think this too, he won't be able, he's kind of lost his shot at completely subverting the Constitution. But between now and then, he's going to do outrage after outrage. And I think the answer to your question is yes. He'll choose people who are nakedly, maybe even, by the way, people have always said, including the Federalist Society, well, we don't have litmus tests. he'll say, here's a litmus test. Who won here's your first question, Mr. Judge applicant. Who won the 2020 election? And here's your second. Whom do you rule in favor of when the administrator? And there aren't any third questions. I mean, something like that actually could happen. It's a travesty, an outrage, but they could argue not unconstitutional. And then, that's and if they cede enough of those here and there, there are a couple of judges out there. We know who they are. One's on the Fifth Circuit, one's the DC Circuit. They're auditioning to the Supreme Court for Trump to appoint them all the time. And it just totally warps the legal process. Could that happen? Yes. What could keep it from happening? Democrats, growing, some spine, or being able to try to defeat. Of course, the Republicans will get rid of the filibuster. So there'll be judges, it'll be 50-50. That will be all they need. So at least until the Senate, is altered a little, he'll ram through some absolutely horrific judges chosen for one reason and one reason only, so it's just sheerly corrupt. Now, they'll have their colleagues on the bench. Eileen Cannon, we have good reason to think, is completely disrespected by her folks. And, it's not, there's some downsides there, but could he do that? Yeah. In fact, I expect him to. 1,330 days left. It's a long time.
Harry Litman runs the Talking Feds YouTube channel, the Talking Feds podcast, and the Talking Feds Substack. It's where I get my legal news from. Everybody subscribe to all of Harry's channels. One more time, Talking Feds YouTube. Just search it on YouTube. Talking Feds Substack and Talking Feds podcast. Thanks, Harry.
Hey, thanks, Ben.
New Meidas merch drop. Check out the latest pro-democracy sticker packs, t-shirts, hats, sweatshirts, and more. All at store.MeidasTouch.com.